you record a G with it? This G.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a lot of accidents with guitar players in clubs just lately. A few guitar players have been plugging in the wrong plugs and getting killed. Let's hope it happens tonight.
Nine.
Imagine a world without the guitar. I've never known such a time, but it felt like that once, in England, back in the 50s. Popular music was dominated by people like Perry Como and the Beverley Sisters. And the nation's song factory was a place called Denmark Street in London, known as Tin Pan Alley.
Birthplace of melodies which have kept Britain singing in good times and in bad. Just 60 yards of plate glass windows, behind which 1 million new songs have been heard.
It was all very cosy and respectable until
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock.
Along came Bill Haley and his guitar.
9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock, we're gonna rock around the clock tonight.
This baby-faced marionette with a kiss curl was a bit of a joke, but he shook things up.
Hey, sister, what do you call that exercise you get?
It's rock and roll, brother, and we're rocking tonight.
When Rock Around the Clock hit the cinemas, the kids went wild and trashed the place. Seats were torn up, and Rebellion had a whole new sound. And Elvis was something else. In his hands, the guitar was so much more than a mere instrument. The king was sexy, and by association, so was the guitar. And at home, there was this, the sound of the oud, an ancient ancestor of the guitar, a kind of Arabian lute played by friends of my father long into the night. Two instruments, clearly linked, but worlds apart. It was all very mysterious. The guitar now dominates the soundtrack of our lives. And look at Denmark Street today. It's nothing but guitar shops, each one an Aladdin's cave of instruments, catering to every musical taste, prompting for the uninitiated the question, who could possibly need so many? What is the magic of the guitar? What makes it so special? Why do people love it so? And how did it come to rule the world?
What else would you play if you were going to play an instrument? If you were, 11 years old as I was in 1958, it would obviously be the guitar. And the guitar was the one that was the trendy one. The guitar was the one that was... It just seemed to me to be at the centre of the universe. When I was about 16, I got into a fight, the first ever fight that I'd ever won. And the guy was so upset with me winning this fight is that he claimed that I'd hit him with a brick. He got everybody in the school to send me to Coventry. It was a horrifyingly miserable time, and I shut myself away with the guitar. There's a vengefulness about this, When I come out with this guitar, you're going to fucking wish you didn't fuck with me.
You're more like a warrior going into battle with your battle axe. Whereas a piano is, you're just a piano man.
Suddenly, at the end of the 50s, Britain got the guitar bug. The piano was dead, and there was a new kid on the block.
Laurie, come along.
Civilized man has always craved some sweet-sounding instrument, so that he might make music and be glad.
Back then, the guitar was new. It was cool. It was portable. And some even had knobs on.
Today, his fancy turns more and more to something he can hang easily around his neck.
If I'm honest, I'm a middle-aged man who barely knows how to hold a guitar, so it's probably too late to learn. But there is someone who might be able to teach me. After all, he taught everybody else.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to begin my show by playing for you a tune that is over 1,000 years old. There's nothing like being up to date, is there? Are you ready? Let's go!
A man called Bert Weedon wrote the best-selling guitar tutor ever. His guide to modern guitar playing made the remarkable promise that you could learn to play in a day.
It's the original book, of course, but then ever since then I've had to have different pictures, same book, different pictures as the time went by. Plan a day, plan a day. That was 1957 to 1987, and that's the latest one.
Still at it, then?
Still at it. They're still selling, yeah.
And what do you think of those people who followed you?
Well, lots
the
of
Beatles,
the Beatles,
Eric Clapton,
Brian May, John Lennon, Paul McCartney. They all learned from the Bert Weedon book, but I didn't teach them the way to play. They had their own styles, but the guitar, everybody loved the guitar.
Are you ready for some good old rock and roll?
Bert proved that in May 1959, when he had the UK's first ever guitar instrumental top 10 hit with Guitar Boogie Shuffle. What is it then about the guitar, Bert, that makes it something which has got such popular appeal? Even if you can't play it well, people want to have one and play it.
I don't know. It's got a symbol that it's a sexual thing, but it's also got a thing that it's a beautiful thing. It's got a thing of emotion. It's like a beautiful woman. You can cuddle it. I just don't know what it is about the guitar, but it is, to my mind, the loveliest instrument of all. The violin's great, the harp's great, the cello's great. I love all those instruments. But the guitar is #1 with me.
A feeling shared with many a spotty oik and freshly scrubbed mummy's boy in the 50s. The new teenage consumer was ready to embark on a musical journey. It might last a lifetime or only a few weeks, but he'll get that all-important first guitar.
My first guitar was, my grandmother bought it for me. She got it from an Italian restaurant. It was on the wall, and the guy replaced it with Chianti bottles.
My first guitar was a tennis racket. No, actually, my first guitar was a Beatles ukulele, one of these little pink ukuleles with John, Paul, George, and Ringo's faces on it.
To have a guitar. I remember telling my dad, I think I was holding his hand, had a picture of Elvis Presley on the head. It was made of plastic. I want that.
First guitar I ever played was my brother's one, which is too heavy. It was kind of a copy of a Fender Stratocaster, and I sort of hacksawed off the edges to make it a smaller size that could fit with me.
This is my Dove, and I hadn't even really noticed that I was wearing this hole. But, I mean, Willie Nelson's got a massive hole in his guitar, and it doesn't make it sound bad.
It's akin, I think, to like a motorbike or a gun to a kid. And for me, it was this fascinating, mysterious, totally captivating item.
first guitar I got was would have been about 4 or 5. There was a shop down the road from where I lived which sold brooms and buckets and mops and stuff like that, and it had this little guitar in the window, which apparently, you know, I was absolutely obsessed with getting this thing. And then my mother tells me that on a Saturday morning she would take me down to this department store where she'd do her shopping. I mean, the times being what they were, you could do this, and she'd take me to where the guitars and amps were, and then she'd nip off and do her shopping and leave me there and know that I'd be all right, because I wouldn't move. I'd just be kind of in this, you know, kind of fantasy land, really.
Do you remember your first guitar, getting your first guitar?
Yes, indeed. My first guitar came from a street market called Petticoat Lane, and I used to go down there every Sunday morning and sort of touch the guitar, and the man would say, clear off out of it. And eventually I saved up 15 shillings, which is, of course, 75p in today's money. And I walked up, and he was just about telling me to clear off, and I said, I'll have that guitar, please, because I always wanted it. And he said, oh, here you are then, son. And he gave it to me, and he put it in 2 big paper bags. So I was so proud of it. And as I was walking down the street in East Ham, people would say to me, what do you got there, son? And I said, it's a guitar. And they said, what's a guitar? They didn't know.
It's extraordinary to think that back in the 30s, when Bert got his first guitar, it simply didn't figure in the popular imagination. This was the first sound recording of a guitar on film, from sometime in the 1920s. So where did it all begin? I was surprised to discover that the instrument in the form we know today, with its seductive hourglass figure, has only been around a couple of 100 years.
Technically, it belongs to the family of instruments known as chordophones,
which produce sound by the vibration of strings between 2 fixed points.
and it goes back a long, long way.
Nearly 3,400 years old and located in modern-day Turkey, this Hittite carving shows a man playing a guitar-like object with a long, fretted neck. According to the great classical guitarist Andres Segovia, the guitar's origins can be traced all the way back to Greek legend and the first love of the god Apollo. It is, after all, an instrument of desire. The story goes that Apollo, struck by a magical arrow from Eros, the god of love, is overcome by passion for a young nymph, Daphne. Thanks to another of Eros's arrows, which has the opposite effect, Daphne has other ideas and flees from the son of Zeus. As he closes in upon her, she cries out to her father, the river god, to save her or transform her. And before the eyes of the astonished Apollo, she is transformed into a laurel tree. The god declares the tree to be sacred and vows to use its wood to make his lyre, the precursor of the first guitar. Apart from this saga of attempted rape, the Greeks had a distressing habit of using almost any hollow object to act as a resonating chamber in their string instruments. Yes, I'm sorry to say, even him. As well as the toll it took on tortoises and turtles, Aristotle had his doubts about the moral value of the lyre in the education of youth. The guitar has always had a bit of a bad reputation.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Crying all the time. Well, you ain't never put it, you ain't no friend of mine.
If he can do it, I can do it too.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog.